This week we're going to look at the different structures of the skin, or the integumentary, so skin, hair, nails, and then the different sweat glands. So you can kind of follow along with the diagrams and then use that to answer the lab packet questions. So we're going to start with the two layers of skin. Your skin is divided into two layers, and possibly three depending on who you're talking to, if that third layer is actual layer of the skin or if it's not. But the two main layers are going to be the epidermis and the dermis layer. So the epidermis is this top layer here. It is usually made of stratified squamous epithelial tissue, so those scale-like cells. It is a barrier that prevents water loss and the entry of chemicals, microorganisms like bacteria, viruses, funguses. It protects against abrasions, protects you against ultraviolet light, produces vitamin D, gives rise to hair, nails, and your glands. The epidermis is actually made up of 5 sublayers. So in this tiny little layer, it's actually divided into 5 other layers. The epidermis has 0 blood vessels in it, and it gets all of its nourishment through simple diffusion. And it's got some specialized cells in there like keratinocytes and melanocytes, which are going to give you or contribute to your skin color. Also some Langerhans cells and Merkel cells are also going to be specialized epidermal cells, which you will be reading about this week. The dermis layer is below that, so all of this in pink here. It is the really thick layer. It's divided into 2 sublayers, so the papillary layer. This is going to bring blood vessels close to the epidermis and also contain your dermal papillae, which is responsible for your fingerprints and your footprints. And then there's the reticular layer, which is right below that. And this is kind of the main fibrous layer of the dermis. It's strong in a lot of different directions. And in this dermis layer, you're going to find blood vessels, you're going to find glands, you're going to find your hair follicles. This is kind of the layer that's going to control or hold a lot of characteristics of the skin. And then down below here is the hypodermis, and it's kind of in gray. Depending on who you talk to, the hypodermis is a part of your skin, or it is a separate layer. And basically what the hypodermis is it's a ton of fat tissue, and it's going to attach your skin or your dermis to underlying structures. It also provides a place to store your energy, insulation, padding. It does contain some blood vessels and some nerves that help supply the dermis with the things the nourishment that it needs to function. Here's another photo that kind of shows the epidermal ridges, these bumps here on the top of the epidermis, which are going to help make your fingerprints, and then your dermal papillae, which is located right below. These dermal papillae are kind of small, bump-like extensions of the dermis that go up into the epidermis. At the surface of the skin in the hands and feet, they will look or appear as the epidermal ridges, also known again as your fingerprints. 2 types of glands that are found in the dermis layer: the eccrine glands, or your sweat glands, and then your sebaceous glands, which are your oil glands. Your eccrine glands are the major sweat glands of the human body. They're found in virtually all skin, most concentrated in the palms of your hands and the soles of your feet, and on the head, found in a smaller amount on the torso and in the extremities. So very concentrated in your hands, feet, and on your head. And it produces sweat. Your sebaceous glands are also found in the dermis then, so these would be over here. And these are going to be much bigger glands. They are going to be oil-producing glands present in the skin of your skin. It releases a oily substance that's called sebum, and its job is to lubricate the hair and the skin of mammals. Nerve endings, you can see here in yellow. Obviously, nerve endings are what is going to give us the ability to sense things in our skin, and then blood vessels, arteries, and veins. Notice that these are found in the dermis layer. Okay, so nerve endings and blood vessels are not found in the epidermis, and that's why if you were little, you remember you used to be able to stick a pin through the very tips of your fingertips and be like, hey, it doesn't hurt and it's not bleeding. That's because this epidermis layer doesn't have any blood supply to it, so it wouldn't bleed, and it doesn't have any nerve endings or pain receptors in it. You have, again in the dermis, your erector pili muscles, and then you also have your hair follicles. So the hair follicles will originate in the dermis, and then obviously the shaft will come out through the epidermis. Your erector pili muscles are tiny muscles that attach to the base of the hair follicle, right here, at one end, and to the dermal tissue at the other end. So that would be up in this area. And in order to generate heat, when you're cold, your erector pili muscles contract all at once, causing the hair to stand up straight on the skin, otherwise known as goosebumps. And that helps generate heat when you're cold to keep your body temperature at homeostasis. So here's looking at an actual tissue sample that's been cut. You can see here where the hair follicle is. So this, purple, darker purple area is going to be your epidermis. This lighter pink area is going to be your dermis then. You have your dermal papillae. You can see those little bumps underneath there. You have the sebaceous gland that's located right here. Epidermis is made mostly of stratified squamous, like I mentioned. Your dermis is going to have areola connective tissue and also be made of dense irregular connective tissue. Here's another really good microscopic picture of your dermal papillae. So those, ridges. And then looking at it from a gross anatomy standpoint, you have your friction ridges. A friction ridge is a raised portion of the epidermis, again on the palm of your hand or on your fingertips or on your toes. And it consists of one or more connected ridge units of friction ridge skin, and these ridges are known as the dermal papillae. And this is going to be what gives you your fingerprints. So we put the epidermis, we kind of classify the epidermis into thick skin and thin skin. Thick skin is epidermis that has all 5 of the layers or the stratums. That makes it thicker. Thick skin is found in areas that are subject to pressure or friction, such as the palms of your hand, the soles of your feet, and on your fingertips. Thin skin covers the rest of your body and is more flexible than thick skin, and each stratum of the epidermis contains fewer layers of cells than are found in the thick skin, so it's actually thinner. Here's a really good tissue sample that kind of shows the difference between thin skin and thick skin. So these are the stratums of the epidermis, so the stratum corneum, the stratum lucidium, etc. So if you focus here on the stratum corneum, in thick skin, you can see how thick this layer is. It's got several layers of cells in it, versus in the thin skin, that stratum corneum is significantly thinner. Look up the stratum granulosum, okay? Again, it's going to be a lot thinner in width or in thickness than it is in thick skin. Moving on to the structures of nails. So at the very distal ends of your digits or your fingertips and toes, there are going to be these protective hard surfaces which are called nails. In other types of primates, they might be hooves or claws. Same thing, functions in the same way as a nail does for us. And the function of nails is to, aid in manipulation and grasping of small objects, and it's also used for scratching. So you can see that this top part here is the free edge of the nail, and then the side parts are the lateral folds, or the lateral sides of the nail. The part that gets painted is your nail body, and then directly underneath that would be your nail bed. Down here is your nail matrix. Up here then, along the top, like underneath that moon-shaped structure of your nail, is going to be the epinochium. The half-moon structure is the lunula. So the reason why this structure looks more white than the rest of the nail is because the nail matrix is so much thicker in this particular area that you can't see the pinkish blood vessels through it. Here are some tissue samples showing you hair. Hair is found everywhere on the skin except for the palms, the soles, the lips, nipples, parts of the external genitalia, and the distant or distal segments of your fingers and your toes. So you got the hair follicle, which is right here, which would be in the dermis layer. Here again you can see a tissue sample of an eccrine sweat gland. Here's the hair root sheath and the hair bulb. So those would sit in that hair follicle, and then it would continue to grow up this direction to form the shaft. And finally, just some tissue samples showing the eccrine glands. You can kind of see them right here, these little purple structures. Apocrine glands, okay, which are going to be the white circles in there, pretty small. And then you can see the eccrine gland. So this whole thing here would be eccrine gland. So those are the diagrams that you can use to identify or complete your lab packet. Have a great day.